Payne.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. Well,
Is this appropriate here? Maybe I should put my phone.
hey, family, welcome to another edition, another episode of the Black Men's Roundtable. My name is Rodney Butler, and I am the host and co-moderator. And all the way to my left is Kevin Evans. He will be my co-moderator for today. Today, we are going to be talking to three distinguished local authors. And some of the things we're going to talk about today will be what inspired them to become authors, some of the difficulties of getting to, or some of the ups and downs of being authors, and some of the and some advice to some of our up and coming authors, our aspiring authors. So those will be some of the things we're going to talk about. I'm going to introduce our panel. I'm going to start right here to my right, to your left, and Mr. Sean Denton. He is a best-selling author, counselor, barber, and entrepreneur. He holds a bachelor's degree in social work from Virginia State University. To my left, we have Mr. Marlo Prelo, and he is a best-selling author, educator, international speaker, and mentor. And all the way to my right is Dr. Stephen Littles. He's an author, educator, administrator, and education activist. He earned his PhD in curriculum and instruction from Mercer University. And I think I left out your educational accolades. And Mr. Marlo Prelo holds a bachelor's degree in marketing from South Carolina State University and an MBA from the University of Phoenix. Okay. All right. Let's give them a round of applause.
Right.
All right. We're going to go on, open up the discussion. We're going to go ahead on and start with my co-moderator, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on this podcast.
Very welcome, sir.
Got a quick questions for you. Inspiration is very important about when you start this kind of activity. Talk to us or walk us through what was your inspiration, how did you get inspired to do what you're doing right now?
So you guys want
Jump in there.
I thank you for having us on this wonderful platform again. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hello world. We just want to appreciate this time here, but to jump right into it, inspiration for me comes from within. So all of my works and my books that I've wrote about started with the inner man. And I could remember as a young child, growing up in a household of domestic violence, just sitting in the living room in the projects in the Bronx, New York, and just writing, in the black composition notebook, writing down my thoughts. And it wasn't until I became an author was people started asking me different questions about how I became an author. And I had to really tap into those times of distress when I didn't know how life was going to be the next day. Mom and dad were going to break up. What was life going to look like? So I made sure that I kept that book really close to me. And years later, I became an author.
You know, inspiration is it's a tricky thing, but I think what inspired me to write or want to become a writer was I work with a lot of high school students. And the work that I put together, I actually have authored two separate pieces, but my most popular piece is about preparing yourself for life after high school. So, during that time, it was just one of those days I had taught, just one of those days where we were teaching, and it was just a rugged, rigorous day. It was a hellacious teaching moment. And I was driving home, and I said, man, I got to do something to continue to inspire these kids. And it was like the word bubble popped up on the side of my head. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I said, oh, I'm going to write a book. Now, I actually didn't think I was going to really write a book, right? You know how you tell yourself you're going to do something, and maybe you do it, but you don't really do it, or you don't really think you're going to do it. Right. But I went home, I sat down, and I literally took out a sheet of paper, and I started making some notes. And, truth be told, it ended up, being this masterful work, about my life. So, my inspiration at that moment really just came from wanting to give my students more. Because I'm a natural speaker, right? I speak all the time, as are some of the people here on the panel. But when you're a speaker and you show up and you razzle dazzle and it's great, and sometimes when you leave, you go, wow, I wonder what else can I do to continue to be impactful, to the students that I serve. So
Exactly.
if you write it down, it lasts forever.
That's true.
Wow. Well, for me, mine is kind of twofold. I have something that first inspired me to write, but I have a different inspiration to keep on writing.
Gotcha.
When I was younger, I would rummage through dumpsters at my school because they would throw away the textbooks at the end of the year. And I would put my library together based on these discarded books that we never read.
Wow.
So I might have been in about 4th or 5th grade. And I found this black anthology. It was like all black. Had like a tattered cover and everything like that. But I read Richard Wright, Black Boy.
Black boy.
I didn't know what I was reading. I just know the titles.
Black boy.
And I read it.
Wow.
And it felt good to read on my own terms. It wasn't being dictated by the teacher or curriculum or anything like that.
Exactly.
And so that was my first inspiration to write, because I said, wow, that was about me, but somebody else who is me. Fast forward to college, my professor, Sonia Sanchez, man, that was a spiritual experience, because she showed me that I was important and that I mattered. And it reminded me of that kid that read Black Boy.
Wow.
And that's why I still write today, because of what she helped me discover.
Wow.
Wow. That was inspiring.
Yeah, it was very inspiring.
That was very inspiring. Very inspiring. Kevin, anything you want to say to close out that topic?
Well, I kind of do. I grew up in the Northeast in New Jersey, and I grew up in a Jewish community. It's Hasidic, ultra-conservative. A Caucasian man taught African American history.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, holy, that don't seem right. It wasn't until two brothers came from Lincoln University in Pennsylvania and Delaware State in Delaware that started teaching us black history, the way black history should be taught. And that was my inspiration to start digging into reading and writing, so much so that I learned Swahili fluently.
Wow.
And they never taught Swahili in my school. So I can understand what you guys are saying about when the inspiration light hits you.
And that's the inner man that I was speaking about. You just, when Marlo said he was in the car, or when you got through that dumpster and something just came over you. That's the something that we want to have the viewers tap into when we further down this podcast. So
Absolutely. You was about to say something?
No.
Okay. We're going to move to the next topic, and this is not easy. Okay. There's a lot of difficulties in getting. A lot of people want to write, but they have so much floating through their brain, and they just don't know how to, put all that stuff together to be able to come up with, a logical, something that you can logically absorb. So we're going to discuss the difficulties of getting started, putting your thoughts on paper. Some of the difficulties of that.
So, in this day and age, it shouldn't really be much difficulty because everybody's got their phone in their hand. If you got a notepad app on your phone, that's the way I write. You go in there, every little 5 minutes that you have free time, you can dedicate towards putting your thoughts to the new paper. Or if you're old school, write it down on paper. Get a pen, get a, pencil and write it down on paper. But that's why I keep reiterating the inner man or the inner woman, because that's where inspiration ultimately comes from. You know, we can't do anything alone. Seek people to hang around with that are doing similar things. Find an outlet to do what you want to do. You know, go to the library, find a little. I met a lady, I forget her name. She called it a war room. Oh, her name is Angelina. She has a war room, she calls it, to have the peace of mind and to be at war with all the conflict on the outside. So that's how she writes her. So I created a little war room too, but I haven't been in there in a while.
You know, I think it starts with commitment, right? Because a part of what I talk about in my book is I talk about developing a finishing mindset, right? You have to develop a finishing mindset. You have to be a master finisher. You have to be a master at completing tasks and moving from one set of objectives to the next.
Right.
And that's what writing, you know, really is about. You know, you have to, if you start, you need to be able to finish. But it's a series of tasks, it's a series of thoughts all strung together. But you have to have that ultimate commitment. If you're not committed to yourself, which goes back to your inner man, and if you're not committed to the project itself, then you know you're not gonna finish because you don't have a real reason. Like there's no real driver, right? So the driver, it's almost like starting with the end in mind.
Right.
You know, I already knew what the end result was. The end result was I want to be able to reach students. So that was the end result.
Right.
So as I'm working through the project, I'm keeping that end result in mind. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
You know, I'm gonna continue to stay focused on that North Star thing, which is the impact that the product is gonna have.
Right.
Right? Not so much of even what it is or even what I'm doing, but I'm focused on the impact and trying to get to the end. And then that's where the commitment kicks in, and then that's what allows you to, you know, keep going to get it done.
That's a good word, master, because I just thought of something. The 4 pillars of mastery. You get it, you got it, you understand. Now you can't get it wrong. So go through those phases where you're trying to understand how to do something, and eventually you will master it.
Right.
And then eventually, a short time after that, you can't do any wrong. It'll just flow naturally.
So when you talk about you have the ending in mind, what is your plan B? Because somehow we all gotta have a plan B. Because the ending don't always come like you want it to come.
Yeah, that's true. You know, and I think what you have to do is, you know, you have to pivot. You know, you have to give yourself grace. You know, because as much as you want to try and as much as you want to get done, family commitments, church activities, kids, obligations, you know, all these different things are going to come into play.
Right.
So it's okay. You have to give yourself grace because you may say, I want to finish this thing and do it in 3 months. Well, it
Right.
might take you 3 years.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
And if that happens, you just have to know that it's okay. Give yourself the grace, but still focus on, stay committed, and still focus on the end result that the project is going to have.
Well, for me, it's the models that I chose. Meaning, I always wanted to emulate someone else.
Right.
But it goes back to what you're talking about. Because if I don't really understand me, it's always going to be a mimicry of someone else, and I'll never be satisfied with it.
Right.
And then that increases the pressure. But it's not your pressure. It's somebody else's pressure. And you never understand it, so you never finish. Right? So you're always trying to live up to some unrealistic expectation that you don't even know what went into creating.
Wow.
Right? And then the other part is not having like a secure village. Like, who can I lean on when I'm having trouble getting my thoughts together?
For inspiration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who's gonna lift me up when I realize that I couldn't hit that mark? Do I fall on my own, or do I have people there to help me out to say, hey, this is what I saw you do. Let me help you out with this.
Absolutely.
So that's been my biggest problem.
Yeah.
You know, and this is, we just being real, right? So,
Oh yeah. Keep it.
you know, I'm watching, this reminds me of Nipsey Hussle and Snoop Dogg. If you guys saw that, you know, they went to the artist, rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. They wanted him to play Snoop Dogg in a biopic.
Wow.
And, you know, he said, hey, man, I can't play Snoop in a biopic because that's going to be a big film, and when people see it, they're going to recognize me as him. But I want to be recognized as myself. So that goes directly to what you just said about being mimicked, you know, and just charting your own path. He didn't want to be in that mimicked light for the rest of his life, so he decided not to do it. Now, it would have been a big opportunity. Probably would have been a decent bag, right? A decent payday. But he had just such a bigger vision, man, for himself and his life.
What better opportunity to be yourself?
Yeah, right.
What better opportunity than to be yourself?
Right.
And I think in that world they call it typecasting. So if he'd have done that, he'd have been Snoop for the rest of anything he ever tried to do.
Yep.
He'd have always been Snoop. So
Image is important.
very.
It leads me to the new movie that's coming out, I think this weekend, Air Jordan. What the author said in making that movie is you're never ever going to see Michael Jordan's face in that movie.
Nope.
Because the movie wasn't about his face, it's about his sneakers. You know? So you got to keep your focus on what
Okay, so
image is.
so that's why in the trailer we don't see his face.
You'll never
right?
see it.
So you're not going to
even
see the
in it.
face
Never
throughout
gonna
it.
see it.
Yeah. So they don't have anybody playing it. Okay, but for all of the young and up and coming writers out there, sometimes putting your thoughts to paper is the hardest part of the process because we can have all the thoughts in the world, but it's like, how do I, well, some of you guys are like this, now, and with your thumbs, but either way, with a pen or with your thumbs, it's still the same thing. It's very hard sometimes, and that's the hard. Once you start, though, I think all of these guys can attest, once you start that pen to paper, a thumb to screen, I think it'll start to flow.
Now that's another part of discipline that comes in, because if you are going to use your phone, a lot of times when I'm getting into the serious editing of my books, I erase the Instagram and the Facebook apps off my phone. That way I don't go from writing a book or writing my thoughts to wanting to know what's happening on Instagram. So you have to be dedicated to your book if you're going to use your phone.
The discipline.
So how do you circumvent, you have a profound thought, sounds beautiful to you, and you have to read it. Man, that's crazy.
It's going to happen.
It is.
How do you circumvent that?
It is.
It's going to happen. And once you're so fulfilled within yourself to do something, it's not going to matter what anybody says, because at that point it's just more motivation for you to finish or to carry out your purpose.
Right, and it goes back to what your purpose is for writing it in the first place. Like, what's your purpose? Why are you doing this, right? When I read Miseducation of the Negro, right, Carter G. Woodson.
Carter G. Woodson, yes, sir.
A lot of people don't know there's another part called the education of the Negro, right? One is the problem, the other one is the answers. But in the preface, he says, by no means is this a complete work. Your job is to take whatever you get from these pages and carry it forward your way, right? So if you understand what your purpose is behind doing it, nobody else's opinion matters, because it's going to reach whoever it needs to reach whenever it does.
He said a good word, the purpose, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
think about, for you future writers out there, think about answering these questions. Who, what, when, where, and why. So the main question you want to answer is, who are you writing this book for outside of yourself? What demographic are you trying to reach? Who do you want this to resonate with? And that's.
And you'll be surprised, you'll pick up other people that you didn't write it for.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to grab it
Yep.
and say, whoa, this is nice.
Yep.
Kevin, I think you got the next topic.
Okay, all this beautiful talk and everything. Talk to us about when that thing hits you in the head and you can't think about left or right. You get the writer's block. You know what you're trying to say, but you can't get on the paper. Your thumbs ain't working. Is that real, or is that just me thinking it's real?
No, it's real, and I'll tell you. Here's what. It's real. The funny story about my first authored book is the first chapter ended up being the absolute last thing I wrote. I had written the whole book, thought the book was finished. People had read it. Oh, this is great. Edited everything, and now one day I was sitting at home in my home office, I was reading it over through for what was supposed to be the last time, and a whole nother entire chapter goes, man, that's not it. This is it. Because the beginning, you're supposed to say this, and then da 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 da. And I was like, wow. I had to redo everything. And that's that. You know, that's the way that sometimes it happens. So I didn't know initially I was blocked. I didn't even know I was blocked, but it was something that just wasn't quite right. So I wrote the beginning at the end.
Sidebar: Genesis was written after Exodus. That's another podcast. But sometimes it happens like that.
Yeah.
So I had a similar experience too.
I think it's happened like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, I think writer's block is real, but it's imagined first, right? And depending on how active your imagination is, affects how real it is, and how long it stays. You know, when I write and I encounter that block, I just start writing something different. That's what Sonia taught me. The free write.
Writing something different.
So I'm trying to get this thing out, and I really can't do it. I just start writing rhymes, whatever, and I just write, fill up pages.
Yeah.
By about page 5 or 6, somehow I got back on my time. Right? That's how I learned to clear my writer's block. I just keep writing because it's a block, but there's still something there that's valuable. And you can still find a way to use that piece because it needs to come out.
Right.
Can't discard it. Right? Still get it out, and you can use that for something later.
And like they said, everything happens for a reason. So a lot of people are like, how do you know what your title is going to be? How do you know when your book should come out? How do you know this? How do you know that? And I just, after doing it so many times, it just happens.
Right.
So when you have that purpose always in the back of your mind, and you're dedicated to what you're going to do, when it comes out, it's going to be so beautiful. You get chills up your arm.
So it's kind of like you saying that as you guys are writing, and you get the writer's block, and you can crumble the papers up, throw them in the trash can. Don't throw the trash can away. Because you need it.
Don't throw the trash can away.
Something's in there.
I like that one, Kevin. Don't throw the
Yeah,
trash
Don't
sounds
throw
in
the
there.
trash can away.
Something I learned too. One thing I learned too early on, old school, when you're writing, never erase anything. Just put a line through it. You can come back and use it. I guess if you guys are doing new school stuff with your texting, don't delete anything.
Yeah.
I don't know, start something new, but keep that. Right? Don't ever discard anything. And if you do decide not to use it, just find a way to store it somewhere else.
Right. It's just like the book of life. We literally can't throw anything away.
Right.
So everything is valuable. You know, we have no choice but to keep these things in our psyche.
We all have chapters in our book of life that we would really like to, just leave out chapter 5 and chapter 7. But if we do that, then it's not a complete
It
book
makes
of
you
life.
who you are.
And it makes you who you are. So, so I think that, using the new technology is okay, but using those, and there are a lot of educators up here, using those as many senses as you can. I think, you can feel it, you can smell the paper, you can, and you use all those things. But I really think the biggest takeaway is don't throw anything away. Put a line through it. Don't erase it. I like that.
And I would also say make sure you
And don't throw away the trash can.
Throw away the trash can. But also copy your stuff frequently. Just a testimony. I was writing my thesis, 150 pages. Well, my niece comes over. This was back in 5 1/4 days. Takes it, and then she taped over it. I'm thinking, Lord, but thank God I saved it.
Yeah.
Because I was about to get a murder case. I don't mean that.
Can we keep going? I got one more. Go ahead. So early on, I went to Radio Shack. They still got Radio Shack?
No, I don't think so.
Nope.
It might be one
You
in
dated yourself.
Colorado. Always seemed to be the last one to hold on. So maybe it's one in Colorado.
Well, go to an electronic shop and invest in a recorder.
Right.
So for those of you, especially like Uber drivers and Lyft drivers and stuff, record yourself talking. Because now they have this software where you can always take some type of USB and have it typed for you. So you can use those hours or whatever that you're riding and just talk to yourself and talk out what it is you want to talk about, what you want to write about.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be typing now. Doesn't always have to be writing.
I think the device is called
Dragon
also
Speak.
Dragon.
Yeah, Dragon is
Dragon
dope.
can speak into it and
Yeah.
then just
And
And
Google
also-
Voice has one too.
also too the Word document. Once you're getting ready to edit your book, for those who want to self-publish, it reads it back to you, so you can hear yourself and the words that you
Right.
wrote.
Right.
Yeah, don't be afraid to just write everywhere. I mean, I can remember flying, writing on the plane,
Oh,
you
my
know,
favorite
typing on the
time.
plane.
That's my
That
favorite time to write,
that
yeah.
was so easy. That was just magic. In the back of the car,
Undivided
you
attention.
know, in the lunch line, you know, at your
Yeah.
kid's school, if you're there for, you know, career day. I mean,
On the toilet.
just don't be afraid to do it anytime. But that goes back to having it on the toilet.
Yeah.
You gotta be super dedicated, you know, super commitment. I want you to operate at the highest level of commitment that you've ever operated. When you start, I am going to finish this, like
Yeah,
no
yeah.
matter what.
Right.
You know, and therefore, if you gotta stand on one leg and while you're feeding the dog and type with one hand, just find a way to do it. We got the technology now that we didn't have before, so you
Right.
literally can do it anywhere.
And ultimately, writing is therapy,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
right? It's therapeutic. One thing I would tell my students all the time was to start the day, I'd be like, hey, we might go through this whole day, and I might not get to interact with you meaningfully,
Right.
because we got so much to do.
Right.
Yeah.
We might go a whole week, right? But I would always make sure they had a journal. Anything you feel that you got to talk about, write it down. Put it back in your desk. We could probably get to it at the end of the week or whatever. But it's important that you get your thoughts out, because I might not be the one to do it for you that day,
Right.
right? So you got to learn how to, and that's when you start to discover who you are,
Yes.
right?
Self-advocate.
Writing to yourself,
Yeah.
writing yourself, you know, I guess you call them love letters, I don't know, right? But that's important, and I don't know if a lot of people really do that, right? It seems kind of strange, but it's therapeutic, man. It really, I know it helped me through a lot of hard times.
Well, that's also a great key and a great start to understanding how to self-advocate, right? Because most of us are educators who work in the system or we deal with kids on a regular basis. Having a child who knows how to advocate for themselves
Yes, sir.
is a huge win because they're able to articulate to you what they need, right? So when you see a student who has, you know, high self-advocate and versus a student who's not, I mean, it's like night and day.
Right.
You know? So that is a great tool, tip, and trick to teach early learners, you know, about self-advocacy. I like that. It's a great idea.
All right. Our next topic, we're going to talk about the pros to being an author. And, well, here's one pro. You're up on this panel. So, but I know a lot of the young people want to know sometimes, like, hey, what's good? You know, what good comes out of it? You know, I'm going to do all this hard work and all this stuff. Let's talk about some of the pros of being an author.
So, like you said, we're on this panel, Black Men's Roundtable, right? At some point in our history, black men and women were not allowed to read and write. You know, and when you let that sink in, it's an honor to be here,
Right.
It's an honor to have y'all here.
right? Because that alone, for your ancestors, your great-grandparents and people who couldn't read and write, you know, here you are writing your thoughts, your innermost thoughts, to share it with the world. So, you know, it's just you have pros like money. You know, you get money, you get some fame, maybe. You know, but
Let them know. They want
what
to know.
more than self gratification of knowing that you completed something? That is what was the most beneficial to me.
Right.
To see that big box delivered to my house with about 100 books.
Yeah.
My first order.
Oh yeah.
You know, or when you see your cover finally created, that is the biggest pro I can say, outside of the other things, the monetary, the things that's gonna go away, because when we pass, you know, our kids and our friends and people who we leave behind are gonna be able to pick up our books and read a chapter.
So the legacy.
It's
The
the
legacy.
greatest legacy to leave.
The money gonna go away. The camera's gonna go away.
Yeah.
All that stuff and the legacy.
Stuff will be here forever, man. When we're gone, they'll still be, you know, reading our stories. And I think for me, one of the biggest pros was the inspiration and the impact that the work will have, right? Because again, for me, I legitimately said, I'm gonna write this book because I wanted something to use with my students that I was teaching. I figured if I write this down, they'll take it more seriously, they'll read it, maybe they'll say, oh man, Prelo wrote a book, and we'll have some fun in the class and we can use it as a tool and move forward. Well, I'm sitting at my desk, phone rings. It's a teacher in Raleigh, North Carolina, and she says, yeah, we got a copy of this I Ain't Going to College book, and it's pretty good. Can we get 200 copies?
Ooh.
So, of course, in my mind, and I do the quick math, I'm like, okay. And she said, hello? I said, oh, yeah. Yeah. Do we have the right person? I said, yes, you had the right person. But see, that was never the intent, right? The intention was, if I put this together and one student reads it and says, hey, you know what? If that guy did it, I can do it, then that, for me, was enough.
Right.
And then all the other, benefits came. I didn't know that a school would contact me from Dubai and say, hey, we got this thing and we'd like you to come here and talk to these students, and put us on an international platform. So, it happens in different ways, but when you're intentional, and you're pure about your efforts, then those are the kinds of things that happen.
Definitely pure about your efforts.
Wow. I think a big pro for me, you ever write something, you come back and read it maybe a year or two later, and you can't believe that you wrote that?
Can't believe that you wrote that.
I think when you write like that, it encapsulates, it's history, right? Because it catches you at a certain period in your life that you're never going to go back to.
Right.
And a lot of times, a lot of us go through life and we go from moment to moment to moment. And we have memories and people remember things, but for you to go back and read something that you wrote at this period in your life, at that period in your life, and see specific differences, and you see your growth over time.
Right. And you don't remember when I'm like, I wrote this?
Right. Just spazzed out. Like, boom.
That's why.
And it's dope, and you love what you wrote, because you're like, yeah.
That's why I will
Facebook has a knack of bringing that up every year. Every year Facebook brings up posts that you wrote, and you look at it like, wow, I got
Yeah, that's right.
I got 200 likes then. You reposted.
Right.
I got 300 likes on something I wrote a year ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because nowadays these kids want likes.
Yeah. Moment in time.
Another pro. Since we talking.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Just writing gives you the ability to organize your thoughts.
Right.
I was in a job interview one time. I didn't know whether to be offended or not.
Like brain exercise.
So homeboy said, hey, you're the first person I met that thinks before they talk. What do you say to that?
Wow.
I didn't get the job. But the fact that I thought before I spoke dazzled this guy.
Yeah.
But that's what writing does for you too. It's beneficial just all the way around. And even if you're not profiting from it, it should be something that people do.
Everything we see and know in this life was a thought first.
Yes, sir.
That water bottle, somebody thought to put water in the bottle, or these phones. It was all in the mind first. So everything we see today was a thought first. And this is why we have to tap into the inner, because just like these electric plugs here, there's something that can help you to be more grounded. Within yourself. Once you plug into that, once you tap into that, now you have more power. Right?
Thanks.
Yep. All right, Kevin, I think you got the next one, right?
Okay.
Yep.
When you think about the advice you would give to aspiring artists, the kids that can put a sentence together, it'd be easy to probably get them motivated to write a book. I was a C and D student back in the day, hard-headed, trouble, all that kind of stuff. How you gonna inspire me? I can't even back then I couldn't even put a sentence, I probably still can't put a sentence together, grammatically correct sentence together. How are you gonna inspire me to write? But I got a lot to talk about. How are you inspiring me to write?
Like we tell our students, we're all educators and we work with these youth and we try to help them to not disconnect with the life that they know, but to connect with something greater than themselves.
Right.
So, again, just hang around with people who are much smarter than you. These guys are much smarter than me. You know, that's.
We'll take the compliment.
Yeah, you know, this is who I surround myself with.
Yes.
You know, so as a young person that I can speak to, surround yourself with the right people. You know when someone's up to no good. You know those who can administer positivity into your life. You know that. That's the least you know. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be this scholar. But the least you know is who's good for you and who's bad for you. And if there's a lane that you want to go in, find someone that's on that highway and stick with them. And write down, like Dr. Little said, just write down your thoughts. Even if you're writing, you know, and it's not grammatically correct, just write. You know, we'll get there with the grammar and the periods and the commas. You know, the right person will help you to make it right.
You got spell check now.
So my takeaway from that is, if you want to be an author, at least have 51% of your friends be authors.
Or hashtag authors in Atlanta
There you go.
and message them.
Yeah.
You know, these are tools we didn't have coming up. It's so easy now to surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
So it's actually no excuse. I don't want to talk to our viewers as if they're lazy or anything like that, but it's so much easier to get yourself out there in the lane that you want to be in.
And it's like you know, technology is great, but like you're saying, it is easier to get yourself out there and to attract certain kind of people, but it's also easier to attract the people who are not have your best interests at heart. So we really have to pay attention to that. But that's a good point.
Peer pressure is very strong. And no matter how many scholars you throw at a kid, peer pressure is hard. And it's hard to get through that.
Yeah.
It's hard to get through that.
We all been there.
Yeah.
You know, we all been there. All of us
On both
Yep.
sides.
grew up in places where we were surrounded by negative peers. And at some point you had to say, oh, I'm gonna go this way this time.
Yeah.
I see them over there, but I'm gonna go take this hard left. If you want something.
Yeah.
You got to keep convincing them, like it was convinced to me, that being smart is cool. Because being smart wasn't always cool back in my day.
Right.
It's still not.
You get beat up in the lunchroom quick. Is your
Still
milk
not.
stolen from you? Yeah. So you got to convince them that being smart is cool.
Yeah. It kind of goes up and down like hairstyles, man. Sometimes smart is cool, then sometimes it's not. I don't know where we are right now, but it seems like we're back to it not being cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's oftentimes more not cool than it is cool. I don't care what environment you're in, you know, it always. I write about, you know, in this book right here, you know, the ability to not be afraid to let people know how smart you are, right? And it's just one of those things that you have to explain it as being able to last that test of time, right? And allow the students to understand that you're only in this particular place for a moment. So you have to maximize where you are right now. Even though you can't see it, even though you don't feel it, you have to maximize where you are right now.
Yeah.
Because you're only going to be in this grade for a little bit.
Right.
And then next year, you're going on. So I always talk about maximizing the moment and capitalizing on where you are right now. Don't worry about 2 years, don't worry about that. Just focus on maximizing where you are right now. And if you can just get them to kind of tap into doing the best that they can do today, you know, and making that best grade, then you can begin to get some traction and you begin to get them to buy in, and then you can begin to start getting them to think about the long term. Because right now, you know, we are short term. Especially, man, our youth, they not even, I used to say, They only thinking about today. They only thinking about the next 10 minutes.
Exactly.
They only thinking about as fast as when they scroll like that. When it stops, that's about as fast as you have, right? And that might be 30 seconds.
Right.
So that window is really short, man. So getting them to think about, tapping into that inner me and just maximizing where they are right now today. If you do that, then you can get them bought in and to move on for the future.
Yeah.
So basically, there's nothing instant
Oh,
about being a good author.
Nothing.
no.
So all that instant gratification stuff, if you want your books up on these tables, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while, Doc.
Well, all right. So if I was trying to inspire you, I think I would take a different approach, right? Carrot's one of his albums. He goes, if you don't repeat the actions of your own success, you won't be successful. I would just try to teach you what that meant, right? So if I can show you how to do something and help you be successful at it one time, I think I got a pretty good chance of you repeating that, right? Because now you have a formula, you know what to do, right? And so, because the goal is for you to have intrinsic motivation,
Yes.
right? It can't be for anything that comes from the outside.
Yeah.
Because when that stuff disappears, it's kind of like giving your kids candy in class. What happens when you run out of money? End of the month, you don't got no money in your paycheck, you can't buy no candy.
Right.
You can't do it. So if you don't have it within you to pull it out, and you don't have those tools, that foundation,
Yep.
it's hard for you to even duplicate.
Yeah.
But if you know how to do that, you'll be fine.
What turned me around was an English teacher in my high school, a little guy with long blonde hair. He let me write from my heart. So I wrote about how drugs got into my neighborhood. That's what I knew. I got an A plus on the paper.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh my God, I can write. And that turned me around. My sophomore year, I was going between quitting school and going back to school. I was gonna quit school. Ain't nothing to do in here.
Right.
I got A plus on that paper. Of stuff I knew to talk about.
Key word. That's what you wrote about what you knew.
Yep.
What I knew.
Something you were interested in,
And
excited
there's
about.
always that one person. I'm a firm believer that there are people that God will put into your life to help uplift you.
Yes.
It's whether or not you want to hear the words that they're saying. If it's going to resonate with you, or if it's going to go through one ear and out the other. That's your choice. That's the one choice that you
Right.
have.
Right.
Whether you want to let it sit right in here and keep it centered. So the inner me is so important. It's just so important.
Everybody has those one persons, and I say it with an S because they kind of come at different points, right? When I was in 3rd grade, Miss Snow, I wrote a paper about vampires, and I can remember specifically writing about beady eyes and sharp teeth and claws. And she said, "Man, you wrote that exceptionally well. You keep writing just like that." To your point, when you do it just like that every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it was descriptive. And now, people read my work, they go, "Man, I felt like I was on that bus,
Yeah.
traveling down the road because I could see everything around because I remember her saying, when you do it, that's how you do it." And that was the thing that, spun me into saying, oh, well, I'm good at something.
Yeah.
Outside of the fact that wasn't something that we heard on a regular basis in the hood. Nobody tell you grew up in the ghetto on food stamps. Nobody come to you and say, "Hey, you doing good."
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
great. So when she said that to me, it meant something.
Yeah.
It way beyond probably even what she thought. The impact of those words that day, I can remember her standing right here beside me and saying that. And I was
Wow.
like, oh, I'm special. Oh, yeah, I'm somebody.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah. It was just a minute of that. And now, look what all of this stuff.
Don't take much for young people, man.
No.
Just a little bit. Just give them a little bit.
One little
you
thing.
know. Well, like I said in the beginning, we have best-selling authors on the panel today, and most of them have done multiple works. But what I want you to do today, gentlemen, and we'll start with you, Marlo, is let's give a brief description of one of your one of your works.
Yeah. My favorite book right here, I Ain't Going to College.
Pick that thing up and hold it up and look at
Let me hold it up. I need to stand up. What I got to stand around? But I Ain't Going to College, right? A Guide for Life After High School. This is our middle school, high school read. It also comes with a workbook as well. But again, as I was teaching and moving through the system, I heard so many kids would say, I ain't going to college, bro. You know what I'm saying? That ain't really for me. That ain't my thing. And I used to say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But what happens is you say that because you're insecure, you don't know what you want to do, and you don't have an answer. So whenever somebody asks you a question that you don't have the answer to, you always default to a negative answer. Nobody ever defaults to a positive answer, right? Hey, you gonna wash your car? Yeah, I'm gonna wash it. I ain't gonna do it. You default to the negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that, as I was trying to get kids to understand the importance of education, and how important it is, whether it's 2 years, 4 years, head school, nail school, HVAC, whatever that may be, it's important to educate yourself beyond high school. And I wanted to, author work and put something together to showcase, what that is and what those points look like. And, we did it and we were able to be wildly successful. We've gone on to create books, workbooks, we have online courses and some other things that all rotate around that one exact topic. So,
Velocity
Good stuff,
education.
good stuff.
correct.
Great man.
Good stuff.
Wow.
Dr. Littles, let's go with you
Oh, man.
next.
Okay.
Say the host for last.
Host for last. All right. Yep. I'm still in the process of creating mine. I'm not a best-selling author by any means.
Stop it, Little. Stop it.
Full disclosure, my book is blank on the inside. I'm not gonna sit here and fake the phone. But cover's done. I'm in that process. When we talked about the writer's block piece, you talked about having to rewrite yours, right? This book is about black male educators who work in elementary school. There are not many of us out there. So I wrote this book while I was a teacher, and I thought I figured it out, and I was ready to put it out, and then I became an administrator. There's a section in my book where I kind of talk about administrators as a teacher. So I just wasn't informed.
Right.
So it wasn't time to put it out yet.
Right.
I have to include one more chapter, and it has to encapsulate this experience right here. But that's what this book is about. It's called Dichotomous Existences, Confronting a Disconnect in Education. And just to put it blunt, as a black male educator, you have to have many different personas because you can never truly be you, because this system wasn't created for us to function in it in the first place. Point blank.
Point blank.
This book right here goes into the story of myself and another black male educator who's in elementary, and we just walk you right through it from what inspired us to go to college, the pitfalls we had to go through to even stay hired, right? It just walks you right through everything. I think it's a beautiful piece. But once we get that last part in about the administration, I think it'll be full.
Look,
I'll be ready to come out.
I have a copy of it at home, and it's Dr. Little is no joke. It's about this thick. Dr. Little publications. I mean, it's when it comes out, it's gonna be something to shake up the educational system.
Uh-oh.
Don't
I see
delete.
it.
Don't delete. Don't delete what you wrote when you were in the classroom, because there's some value in there as well. Even though now you're gonna look at it from a different space, but it'll be good to parallel that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Look, there are a whole lot of current and former elementary school black male educators who are waiting eagerly for this work. Because, like you said, Sean, it's this thick.
I mean,
Man, I'm surprised it's not this thick. Because that's how much you have to not be yourself in order to operate in that world. So we're eagerly awaiting.
And
But
it's,
that
a, it's, a
also-
need, it's a need for African Americans at the elementary school level.
Right.
Because for what I understand, prisons are based off of the test scores of third grade African American boys.
Prison
That's how they start building prisons. And they don't see a lot of you.
And it's really just one subject. It's really reading.
Right.
And by the third grade, you supposed to read to read to learn, not be still learning to read.
Right.
And if you're still learning to read in the third grade, they're building a prison. They're building a jail cell for you, a prison cell for you. Because that's what it's truly based on. So,
Yep.
man, we can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
That sounds like the black man's life book, actually.
You know,
Even though it's that one genre, but that's almost what we go through every single day. I
Every
think
single
everybody up here can attest to that. Fitting
Yeah.
into a system, that's life.
I mean, if you think about it, education is kind of it's a reflection of everyday
Right.
life.
Yep.
Everyday life. So.
Absolutely.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I talk about, just having these many existences, right? When I wrote this book, similar to the War Room, that book has, like, when I laid out my life as a black male educator, it had so many different parts. I took a whole room and I had to cut out sentences. Y'all gotta feel me on this one. I took the whole manuscript and I cut out every sentence. And I created categories on the wall that went around the entire room, and I taped them based on how they went. Because I wanted this piece to not be helter-skelter. I wanted it to be organized and together, right? It was a real, that right there, it's systematic and it's put together in a way that I don't think I've ever written before.
All right.
It's heavy. It's heavy.
Tag you in.
Sean, he said tag you in.
Tag you in. So, we lastly, oh no, that's the last one. So I am the little I. The Sean you see now, I'm the little I. This is the big I, and it's understand, not the Holy Bible. So I was always a young child who would ask a lot of questions. Who's God? Who's this? Who's that? Where does this come from? And I take what you tell me, and I'll go and study it, and I believe it, right? So prior to this book, coming up in the church, and I was heavy in the church, I realized that some things were happening in my adult life in the church that I didn't quite see as a youth, and I got upset. So in that book, it's the esoteric wisdom, the inner wisdom that I was given, and that you can read my emotions, my raw emotions in that book. That a lot of people sent me to hell on that one because it said not the Holy Bible on it. I would tell them, if this was the Bible in his hand, my book is not the Holy Bible. Simple as that.
Right.
I didn't want to take the words of God and put it in my book. Prison of the Mind. I had lost a friend named Tyrone Hudson in 2018, and it was a dark time for me. And I wrote this book. When it came in the mail, I was upset that my name wasn't on the spine. Here, this is what you call spine. And I didn't know that this book was going to be my best seller, my most impactful, because so many people that I meet are depressed, and they're in a low place in their life. I was wrapping up this book in the post office to send to somebody, and this white lady who I would never thought would talk to me comes up to me. She's like, "Oh, you're sending someone a beautiful gift." And I was like, just sending someone my book. She's like, "You're an author?" And I was like, "Yeah, black people do write books." So she says, "Wow, what's your book about?" And I said, "It's Depression, Prison of the Mind." And she goes like this to me. And I thought it was the middle finger, but it was her ring finger with the suicidal awareness symbol.
Wow.
She had just tried to commit suicide.
Wow.
And she says, "Wow, I feel you," and I signed a copy, gave her a book, and she's been somebody who's been aspiring to write as well. I still keep in contact with her.
Wow.
So this book, I didn't need my name on the spine because this is above me.
Yeah.
This is greater than me. And Autonomous, The Inner Keys of Life, that's a little less emotional, like the first one. I would say it's just, full of righteousness. It's a good read. So those are my books.
You know what, Sean? I'm glad that lady didn't. I'm glad she didn't say that you are well spoken or whatever that's saying.
Yeah.
Sean probably went ballistic on.
Yeah, so,
All right. Look, let's give them a round of applause. Okay, Joel, do we have any, well, we got a little time. Do we have any questions in the live audience? Okay. Well, we have one. No, what?
I don't have any.
No, I'm saying. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, we have one. Joel, you can get. I think this is working. If you can take this, or yeah, you can give that to me.
I don't know if it's working.
It says it's connected, but if not, we can definitely take one of these.
Yeah, I'll take this over.
Okay. Here, Joel, you give it back to
I just have a general question. The length of time on average that it's taking you all to actually write a book is something I'm curious about. I've tried to write a book in the past and I stopped because I'm very busy at times. So what was the sacrifice in your time to actually get a book to completion where you finished it? You know, I know you got other things to do as far as editing and those kind of things, but how long did it take you to actually finish writing your book?
I'll go first. For me, probably a year. Probably a year. Started off making notes, then kind of moved to outline, then moved from outline to structuring the chapters, then from structuring chapters to, thinking about, what does the book look like, the beginning, the middle, climax, the end. So, but I say when I really locked in, was like, okay, it's go time. I'm going to really crank this thing out because the thoughts was just flowing. I got up at 5 a.m. I wrote from 6 to 7. I cooked my family breakfast, took my daughter to school, went to work, did my work day, came home, did a little bit more in the afternoon. But that 6 a.m., the 6 o'clock time frame was the one. When I started getting up and going hard early in the morning, then those last 2 or 3 months, I was just destroying it. I was knocking it out like on a regular basis. Then, and that's everything from the editing to the book cover. Like legit start to finish.
Well, for mine, it's not done yet, but back that up with it is a published dissertation, right? So when you write a dissertation, you have to write for a different audience. So I wouldn't be able to take what I put in my dissertation, publish it, and sell it to you, right? It wouldn't be palatable for you.
Right.
So I got to go and rewrite the entire dissertation, right? So, but to do the dissertation, it took about 3 years from start to finish. Well, the writing piece, not the classes.
I would agree with Mr. Marlowe about a year is kind of a, when you say, all right, this year I want to get this done, but life comes, we all have kids and we're working and everything like that, but I don't know if you were here when we spoke about the preface, when you, basically that's like the last thing you write, but it's in the beginning because you want to answer who, the what, the when, the where, the why. So when you have those questions answered, it becomes a lot easier, a little bit, and your purpose will be more fulfilled. So I think the time, it really doesn't necessarily matter because when your book does come out, it'll be the time.
All right, I think we have another question.
Well, I really don't have a question, but it's more of an inspiration.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
know if you have time to listen to me, but
No, go ahead.
I have had a situation that occurred this weekend. My first cousin, they had a memorial for him up in North Carolina, and he actually lived right next door to me. Okay, what happened is that he became a chief of Indian Nation in North Carolina, and the governor back a few weeks ago lowered the flags in his honor. So I thought that was a great inspiration for him and for the family. The memorial must have been about 200 people there this weekend. And what happened when I came back today, I was out in my yard working in the yard, something hit me. I said, well, you know, I come from a small town, and during segregation, there was certain black individuals that played a role in my hometown.
Right.
And in other words, they created a unit for black people to be able to shop, go to various stores without having to go to another party. So I thought about that. Now I stopped and came up with about 20 individuals that were an influence for me and the community as a whole. And went to my wife and we sat down and wrote about each one of them. So just what we're talking about now, that inspired me to be able to try to put something down in paper. And the reason being is that, just like you said, my generation, we're getting older. My kids will not even know, or the kids that are coming up will not even know about those individuals
Right.
unless someone puts it down on paper. And so this has actually been inspiring to me to go ahead and continue to write and to try to make sure I can educate the community in my little small hometown about what was going on prior to that, because we were able to see a lot of stuff. We had individuals, how when the high schools were integrated, there were two individuals, they now live here in Atlanta, they got shot in my high school. I mean, not in my high school, but
Right.
in the majority high school that was there. So there were two systems. There was the black system and you had the white school system.
Right.
And that's when integration came about during that particular time. So there's some stories that I feel that that needs to be published, and so other individuals, the younger generation, can find out exactly what was going on.
Hey Frank, I just want to say, man, look, this whole thing was, well, we focus on younger people, you know, but for you to say, hey, I'm inspired, man, that's something, y'all. That's
Like
something.
even the school books, you know, I remember when I was in high school, or in elementary school or whatever, we got the school books from the white school
Right.
after they used
The
them.
hand-me-downs.
And they had their names all in them and pages and stuff written down.
Yep.
So we got the second-hand books.
Yep.
And, you know, kids nowadays don't understand what went on during that time.
Well, a lot of them don't understand. They still getting secondhand books.
Yeah.
They just erase the names. They don't line through them. They erase them, man.
But anyway, I thought I would throw that out.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no.
it, Frank.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Can't wait for that.
Absolutely. All right. Okay.
I remember
Oh.
what Frank just said. It reminds me of snapping peas on the porch with Big Mama. That's exactly what that reminds me of. You snap peas with her,
Oh, yeah.
she's telling you all
Yeah.
about it.
That's right.
You don't even know it.
That's
But
right.
she's giving you good stories.
Yes.
And you cook
Yes.
them.
And they trying to take it all away, but that's
Shelly
that's down the road. They trying to take it all away.
But I don't need y'all here.
Yeah, we'll be there for you, Mr. Payne. Honestly, because we need it.
Well, Frank, you know what we're creating a powerhouse, so they'll be there. Good show, guys. Good show. I definitely want to send a shout out to Corey Coco brother Condry, just for going above and beyond what we asked for on 104.5 locally and at radiocondre.com. Hey, brother, you already know. You already know.
Thank you, Coco.
You already know. And you can check out our recorded episodes on of the Black Men's Roundtable on YouTube and Facebook at Douglas County, Georgia Democrats. I want to thank our online audience and our in-person audience for attending today. And appreciate it, guys. Appreciate y'all coming out. And on behalf of my co-moderator, Kevin Evans, and the DC Democratic Party, until next month, stay woke. Yes, woke. Don't let them take that away. Stay woke. All right, guys. Appreciate it.